concludes proceedings on the urgent question, and we will now proceed to the business question. Shadow Leader of the House, Lucy Powell.
To ask the Leader of the House if she will give us the forthcoming business.
Leader of the House.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. The business for the week commencing the 5th of February will include, on Monday the 5th of February, remaining stages of the Finance Bill. On Tuesday the 6th of February, Opposition Day, 4th allotted day, debate on a motion in the name of the official opposition subject to be announced. Wednesday the 7th of February, motions related to the police grant and local government finance reports. On Thursday the 8th of February, a general debate on National HIV Testing Week, followed by a general debate on the management culture of the Post Office. The subject for these debates were determined by the Backbench Business Committee. The House will rise for the February recess at the conclusion of business on Thursday the 8th of February and return on Monday the 19th of February.
Lucy Powell.
Thank you very much for that, Speaker. And can I wish you a very happy birthday as well, Madam Deputy Speaker. Can I start by expressing our profound regret that the member for Finchley and Golders Green has decided to step down due to safety fears for himself and his family. The recent attack on his office was horrific. That any member is forced from office due to intimidation, threats and fear is an attack on all of us and what we represent. It is unacceptable, and we must do more to protect our freedoms and democracy, and we stand together. Madam Deputy Speaker, yesterday Alison Phillips was banged out of the newsroom in her last day as editor of the Daily Mirror. Alison broke the mould for female journalists, and she led a number of campaigns which had direct effect on this place, and she leaves a proud legacy. Madam Deputy Speaker, last week I asked the Leader about the Procedure Committee report on the scrutiny of Lord Secretaries of State. Has she now digested it, and when will she bring forward a motion to make it happen? I'm going to chalk it up as a victory that after many weeks of asking, Foreign Office ministers finally came forward with a statement this week on the ongoing conflict in Gaza and Israel. Will she ensure this happens more often with the Foreign Secretary himself taking question? The situation demands it. The International Court of Justice's interim ruling was deeply significant and makes for difficult reading. We are clear that Israel must comply with the orders in the ruling in full, and that Hamas must release all the hostages immediately. International law must be upheld, the independence of international courts respected, with all sides held accountable for their actions. 25,000 innocent people are dead, including thousands of women and children. 85% of the population of Gaza have been displaced, and millions face risk of famine. We cannot let innocent Palestinians pay the price. We must redouble our efforts for a sustainable ceasefire and a political process to a two-state solution. On that, Madam Deputy Speaker, I welcome the Foreign Secretary's willingness to recognise the state of Palestine, a policy we have long supported. And we hear this morning that Secretary of State Blinken is moving the US in this direction too. As the Leader of the Opposition said, it is in the inalienable right of the Palestinian people. So can she clarify, as there is some confusion, what the government's policy is on the recognition of Palestine? Talking of Secretaries of State being accountable, perhaps she can clear up some of the creative use of language used by the Home Secretary in his appearance at yesterday's Home Affairs Select Committee. Apparently, we no longer have a backlog of asylum claims. It's just a queue of 94,000 applicants. Some queue, but definitely not a backlog, Madam Deputy Speaker. And the 33,000 asylum seekers who've gone missing apparently aren't missing, but have simply disengaged. Does she recognise that her government has lost control of the asylum system and that smoke and mirrors can't hide the truth? The Business Secretary wasn't exactly forthcoming with the truth this week either. On Monday, she told this House that negotiations with Canada to save British car exports were ongoing. But now we learn that she walked out of those discussions and the entire issue is on pause. So does the leader want to take this opportunity to correct the record? Finally, Madam Deputy Speaker, I can't let this session go by without referring to the leader's rather bizarre, unprompted, over-the-top glowing tribute of the Prime Minister she made here last week. I feel the lady does protest too much. It was as if she was at the traitors' round table, desperately wanting everyone to believe she really is a faithful. But it seems the traitors sit amongst them still, secretly planning their next kill. The evil plotters trying to avoid banishment so they can win the prize. So can she reveal herself today? Because we all want to know, and perhaps some of her colleagues can too. Or perhaps they should just do us all a favour and cut straight to the end game and let the public decide. Because quite honestly, as much as I love the Traitors show, this is not a TV show, and their antics have real-life consequences. And as much as we're all sick of watching it, unfortunately, there's no off switch.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker, and also from this side of the House, a happy birthday to you. This week I met with Ashley, the cousin of 19-year-old hostage Aiken Berger. She is the girl that many members will have seen video footage of playing her violin in happier times. She volunteered with special education needs children, and she was actively involved in working towards a peaceful solution in her region. Can I thank the Honourable Lady opposite for her remarks about the hostages and all members who are working hard to keep the spotlight on these people and their families, and I hope that they will all be home soon. Can I also join with the Honourable Lady opposite, and I thank her again for her remarks about the Honourable Member for Finchley, who has said that he is going to stand down because of his safety and the well-being of his family. Such attacks on elected members are attacks on democracy itself. I know many members, honourable members and right honourable members, and their families are enduring such threats. We condemn such actions and those who also encourage, incite and excuse them. And I thank the Honourable Lady for cross-party support on that matter. And I also would join with paying tribute to Alison, who was banged out of the newsroom, and also thank her colleagues who posted that on social media. I think it sends a very positive message for women in particular who want to work in that sector. The Honourable Lady asked about the Procedure Committee, and I thank again the committee for their report on holding to account the Foreign Secretary on a range of issues. She will know that their recommendations do in part rely on their noble lord's consent, and I am very keen to hear the views of their Procedure Committee with regard to some of the recommendations that our Procedure Committee has made. I would say to the Honourable Lady that since the Foreign Secretary was appointed, there have been 41 sitting days, and in that time there have been 71 appearances in Parliament by FCDO ministers, including from the Foreign Secretary to parliamentary questions and to select committee appearances. On the issue of Gaza, the lady raises some very serious issues. She will know, we just recently had the Minister for the Armed Forces at the dispatch box, that this government takes compliance with international humanitarian law extremely seriously. With our partners, we monitor what they are doing. She will know that Israeli Defence Forces also produce reports after the event. You can see that from previous conflicts, and all of this is subject to a great deal of scrutiny, but I will certainly make sure that the Foreign Secretary has heard her concerns today. She talks about the Home Secretary. She will know that, and indeed many on her side have acknowledged the fact that the plan in terms of ending small boat crossings and ensuring that we is speeding up processing in the Home Office is working. I think the latest figures show that the Home Secretary has sped up processing in his department by 250%. She will know that crossings are down by substantial amounts, I think now just shy of 40%, and returns are up. Which is all to be welcomed. It has been in very great part helped by new legislation that this side of the House has introduced, and I am sorry that the honourable members and right honourable members opposite have not been able to support such legislation. Which brings me to the final topic the honourable lady raises, and I will make the case that we are faithfuls on this side of the House. We have been faithfuls in our obligations to the British public in strengthening our borders. We have brought forward legislation that the opposition have voted against on one recent bill over 70 times. We have been faithful to them in our promises. We have been faithful to them in delivering on their decision to leave the EU. We have that landmark anniversary this week. Whatever way people voted in that election, we stuck with that democratic result. We didn't try and reverse it. We didn't try and campaign for a second referendum. And what the British people want to know is that we're on the right trajectory now. Since we left, we've grown faster than many nations, including Germany, Italy and Japan. Our export services are up at a record high. For goods and services, we are rising through the global rankings. We're up a place since last year. We've overtaken France on manufacturing and simplified tariffs on thousands of goods and removed hundreds of trade barriers. We have been through tough times, but whether it is our plans to level up communities such as Teesside, which the honourable members opposite seem to be objecting to, or whether it is maximising our newfound freedoms to control our destiny and our borders, or to open up more opportunities for the wealth of talent and creativity for our citizens, our plan for Britain is working. Britain is on the right course. We have been faithful to our promises to the British people. Labour have not. They would turn us back on the EU, on union reform, on tax hikes, and many more. Further business announced in the usual way.
Wendy Morton.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker, and best wishes on your birthday. Last week was Neighbourhood Policing Week, and I was able to join the local Aldridge and Brownhills neighbourhood teams out in the community. Will my right honourable friend join me in thanking our local teams for all they do? And does she agree with me that central to neighbourhood policing areas are neighbourhood policing hubs, which is why I continue to campaign against the proposed closure of Aldridge Police Station, and why, with only a few months left of the PCC role, there should be a moratorium on any closure.
Well, I thank my right honourable friend for that question, and congratulating her on getting her concerns on record. Since 2010, our communities have become safer. On roughly the same resource, when you take out online fraud, we have, in effect, halved crime. Violent crime is down by 51%. Neighbourhood crime, including robbery and theft, is down by 48%. And I shall make sure that the Home Secretary has also heard what she has said today.
SNP spokesman Deidre Brock.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker, and miawr doneoch to you. We did see a softer side to the leader last week. The Prime Minister is a great dad. She loyally read out the script from number 10. She gives a lot to charity, she whispered. But then right on cue, normal service was resumed and she was thundering fury at Scots for not voting Tory. She then asked me a question, Madam Deputy Speaker, which I can tell you got quite a response in Scotland. Why do you think us Tory rotters, her words, not mine, are so desperate to keep Scotland in the Union, she asked. Why, indeed? I mean, it's generally felt Conservatives act in their own self-interest. So, anyway, Scots have been totting up all the great things about being in the UK. The gift of Brexit, making us poorer faster than even the worst forecasts. 14 years of grinding, endless austerity. A crippling debt burden of over 100% of GDP, just for starters. But the leader's not alone in her desperation to keep Scotland lashed tight to Westminster. She'll remember seeing a secret document presented to Cabinet in July 2020 by her colleague, the Levelling Up Secretary, its existence revealed at the COVID inquiry this week. Finalised at the height of the pandemic, it was entitled The State of the Union, a blatant attempt by her government to politicise the pandemic and indeed undermine the Scottish Government when trust in government messaging was crucial. It asked Cabinet to endorse some sort of strategy, most details of which are sadly missing from the inquiry's version. It required polling, research and data analysis, all at a time when Scotland's First Minister and Government were focused on and doing their damnedest to protect the people of Scotland. Number 10, of course, was slithering from one scandal to another. We know a Union Strategy Committee and a Union Operations Committee were set up to mimic the strategy and operations committees that helped create the monster of Brexit. Now, she would agree the considerable resources required that diverted cash and personnel from fighting the pandemic must be made clear to the public that funded it. So will the leader ask her colleagues to give a statement on this project, laying out why it was an appropriate use of governmental resources, what it did and what it's felt to have achieved, let's say its KPIs, particularly given the times in which it was conceived. Finally, she will recall that State of the Union report found that 82% of young voters in Scotland want independence, amongst many things. Can she tell us, is she surprised?
The Honourable Lady talks about normal service. We have had normal service from the SNP this morning. Yes, the full bingo card of textbook standard nationalist operating procedure. Failure to take responsibility for the things that you are responsible for, tick. Blame others, tick. Demonise opponents, tick. Distract from the indefensible things that the SNP we've found out about this week, tick. And a complete lack of self-awareness. Only the Honourable Lady could come to this House and raise the issue of the COVID inquiry this week. Maybe she should have spent a little more time watching the evidence delivered by her own First Minister. The fact that we are having a COVID inquiry and that we did a lessons learnt exercise is because we do want to ensure that this nation can be resilient in the future and we can learn the lessons of that. The Honourable Lady's Party has been less than forthcoming on a similar ambition for their own performance in Scotland. So I would just ask her to reflect on that. Yes, the only thing that has been missing from the Honourable Lady's question to me this morning is that she has somehow failed to accuse the UK government for an escaped macaque from the Highland Zoo. Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker.
Bob Blackman.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker, and I echo the calls of happy birthday to you. Last week in Ayodhya, in Uttar Pradesh, in India, the Ram Mandir was consecrated. This was of great joy to Hindus across the world, as being the birthplace of Lord Ram. Very sadly, the BBC, in their coverage, reported, of course, that this was the site of a destruction of a mosque, forgetting the fact that it had been a temple for more than 2,000 years before that happened, and that the Muslims had been allocated a 5-acre site on which to erect a mosque adjacent to the town. So will my right honourable friend allow time for a debate in government time on the impartiality of the BBC and its failure to provide a decent record of what it actually is going on all over the world?
Well, my honourable friend will know that the Secretary of State has recently reported on the BBC's review, and there were some very important issues raised in that. He knows how to apply for a debate, and he will know that the next questions to the Secretary of State are on the 22nd of February, but he has achieved, I think, his objective today, which is to get his concerns on record.
Ian Mearns.
Very grateful, Madam Deputy Speaker, and can I add my wishes for you a very happy birthday. Madam Deputy Speaker, can I thank the Leader of the House for announcing the business next week and for announcing the backbench business debates next Thursday. And if we are allocated time on the first Thursday back following the February recess, we would have 2 debates on the civil nuclear roadmap and premature deaths from heart and circulatory diseases. As a committee, we're very much open for applications, particularly for Westminster Hall debates. I know that every week many members are unsuccessful in ballots for Westminster Hall debates, and possibly some of those members who are unsuccessful in the ballots might actually think about coming along and applying to the Backbench Business Committee. It is another route, and time is more available in Westminster Hall than it is in the chamber, where we are heavily subscribed, but still very much welcome applications. And I do also note that with the change of today's business at short notice, and I understand fundamentally the reasons why, I just hope that the Leader of the House will be very kind to the Backbench Business Committee in allocating time in future weeks. One last matter from my perspective. The former Quick Save supermarket building in Felling and Gateshead has been lying empty and in disrepair for over a decade, and the owner have actually resisted all legal attempts by the council to facilitate its demolition. Unfortunately, now it's becoming a magnet for antisocial behaviour, and local residents are actually regularly being pelted with debris from the site. The owner has actually used the courts and the legal processes to frustrate the council in expediting this much-needed demolition. Can the Leader of the House guide me in how we can actually get this sorted out? Because this owner is actually causing a blight on many people's lives in that locality.
Well, can I firstly thank the Honourable Gentleman for his, again, usual and very helpful advert for the Backbench Business Committee, both the opportunities it can afford to members, but also further topics that I hope will be able to be debated in the week back after recess. That is much appreciated. I know that the Secretary of State for Levelling Up is very focused on precisely the type of situation the Honourable Gentleman describes, or similar situations where, although the landlord might not be an obstacle to development, they do not have the capacity to make repairs to the building, and other third-party developers do not wish to buy a building in that condition, and looking at what bridging finance could be made available to help facilitate that. And he has also brought forward the notion of community auctions as well. But I will write to him and make sure he has heard the Honourable Gentleman's interest and ask his officials to afford the Honourable Gentleman some advice.
Selaine Saxby.
Deputy Speaker, and happy birthday. Cedars Roundabout on the edge of Barnstaple is subject to 20 weeks of roadworks that are supposed to help with congestion. The first week saw up to 2 hours of delays for students and teachers getting to school, and businesses losing huge amount of trade and staff also late. This scheme has gone ahead with local councillors' support, but without adequate traffic management or modelling, either on the site or across the rest of Barnstaple, which has been blighted by road delays for decades. Whilst clearly a local issue, can my right honourable friend guide me towards any government assistance or any national schemes that would enable someone to come and help with the road traffic modelling? As the fear is, given how bad the traffic management has been to date, that even when the scheme is completed, it will barely help the congestion in the way that it should.
Well, I'm very sorry to hear about what is happening in the Honourable Lady's constituency. I know elsewhere in the country where such schemes have caused massive disruption, particularly to local businesses, the local authority has also provided compensation for those businesses in those cases, and she can get examples of good practice from the Department for Levelling Up. I know from my own local patch that we have got taxi drivers to model traffic flow and tell us where there are problems with traffic light sequencing and so forth. There are many innovative ideas out there. I would encourage her local authority to look at them, and I shall make sure that the Secretary of State has heard about the situation in the Honourable Lady's constituency.
Nadia Whittome.
Thank you very much, Madam Deputy Speaker. On the 13th of June last year, Nottingham was shaken by the horrific stabbings that took the lives of 3 precious members of our community: Barnaby Webber, Grace O'Malley Kumar and Ian Coates. The person responsible had numerous interactions with mental health services and police forces in the months and years prior to these attacks. The families of his victims, quite rightly, want answers about missed opportunities which may have prevented his crimes. Will the government make a statement to this House on the various investigations that are now taking place and whether it will convene an independent inquiry?
Well, I'm sure I speak for the whole House when we say how appalled we were at this terrible tragedy, not just the 3 individuals the Honourable Lady names who lost their lives, but also others who were very seriously injured indeed, and the whole nation has been rocked by seeing that. And I thank the Honourable Lady for raising it. She will know that the government law officers have commissioned some work on this area. I'm sure they will want to keep the House updated on that. And while it is ongoing, there is probably not much else that can be said at this dispatch box, but I will make sure that both the Secretary of State at the Department for Justice and also the Attorney General have heard what the Honourable Lady has raised today, and I shall ask them to make sure that they're keeping the Honourable Lady informed about progress in these matters.
Nickie Aiken.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. I am proud that under this Conservative government, UK children's reading ability continues to improve. The UK is now 14th in the internationally respected PISA test run by the OECD, up from 25th under the last Labour government. With this week being National Storytelling Week and with World Book Day on the 7th of March, would my right honourable friend consider a debate in government time highlighting the importance of reading for pleasure and celebrating British and Irish literature?
Well, the Honourable Lady will hear the support from across the House for what she has said. Being able to read is a wonderful gift. It is not just about people getting an education, it is about an individual's whole self, and it is a wonderful thing to do and encourage families to do together. The Honourable Lady is absolutely right in terms of our nation's success in climbing the international literacy tables. We should be very proud of that and place on record our thanks to everyone who has enabled that to happen, including our incredible teachers.
Christine Jardine.
Thank you very much, Madam Deputy Speaker, and happy birthday. On the 12th of January last year, I came to the House and asked the leader how I could pursue finding a way of putting charities who want to help bereaved children in touch with those bereaved children, knowing where they are and offering them support. It seemed like a simple thing to just come up with a protocol. Since then, we've had 2 debates. I've met 2 government ministers. We've had a petition presented to Downing Street by bereaved children who want to see something done for others. They don't want to suffer in the way that they did. And so many of us who've been through that kind of grief want to see progress. But in both of those discussions with ministers, there were schools ministers, and they talked about what's been done in schools, which is very supportive. No one has any criticism of that. And in both cases, at the end of the meeting, they said, actually, we think you need to speak to the Home Office. But that's where everything grinds to a halt. We don't seem to be able to make progress and get clarity that what we want to do is actually quite simple. It's not a change, it's not a new law, it's simply a change in practice. So I wonder if the Leader of the House could advise me on how we get some clarity and move forward and perhaps get that meeting with the Home Office.
Well, can I thank the Honourable Lady for her continued work in this area. I know many members across the House have been in the situation she described, having lost a parent at a young age, and it is so important that people are properly supported. I will write to all relevant departments. I know from my own experience of dealing with health and work issues, getting the right people from the right departments in the right room together and locking the door until they arrive at a solution and that we can take forward is sometimes the only way of doing things. But I thank her for her diligence, and I will talk to all ministers in the relevant departments and ask them to put a plan together and come and talk to the Honourable Lady.
Deidre Russell.
Deputy Speaker, and a very happy birthday to you too. I have been in regular communication with the relevant authorities about the Meriden estate in Watford. I brought many of them together just last year to look at the issues that residents raised with me. One of those issues that's really pressing is the dangerous and illegal parking that's happening outside the new parade of shops. So whilst work's being done, I'm sharing the residents' concerns, which I also have, that this dangerous parking remains a serious accident waiting to happen. So can my right honourable friend guide me on how I can press for further urgency with the various authorities on a solution, but also remind drivers and those who are parking illegally that they're really putting people's lives at risk on York Way? Thank you.
Well, I thank the honourable gentleman for his campaign. Illegal parking, as he knows, is classified as antisocial behaviour, and it can have really devastating consequences, particularly if emergency vehicles are not able to access roads that they need to. He will know that the next relevant questions to the Home Office is on the 26th of February and the Department for Transport on the 8th of February. But I will make sure that both Secretaries of State have heard his concerns.
Gregory Campbell.
Speaker, and birthday greetings. Could the leader endeavour to try and find space in government time for a debate that might celebrate sporting excellence in Northern Ireland, given on the one hand last night we had young Conor Bradley scoring his first goal for Liverpool FC, and at the other end of the playing spectrum we had the announcement by Stephen Davis of his retirement from professional football that I've alluded to in my early day motion 333.
Well, I think that is an excellent suggestion for a debate. He will know how to apply for one in the usual way, and I'm sure that the whole House would want to join him in his congratulations to both Conor and Stephen for all they have done to make us all very proud.
Anna Firth.
And a very happy Essex birthday to you. Leith Court is a 42 low-rise block of flats in my constituency which had cladding installed as part of the government's Green Deal policy, but following the tragic events at Grenville, the insurance premiums have gone from 20,000 to over 100,000. Sadly, because it's under 11 metres tall, it doesn't qualify for government support to remove that cladding, and the Association of British Insurers have repeatedly failed to deliver a long-promised alternative scheme. I've been raising this with ministers for nearly 2 years. Please, can we have a statement on what the government is doing to press the ABI to launch this long-promised scheme? Thank you.
I'm sorry to hear about the situation in my honourable friend's constituency, and I congratulate her on her diligence in trying to find a solution to the situation. If the honourable lady will furnish my office with the correspondence that she has had with I imagine the Department for Levelling Up on this matter, I will raise it with the department and see whether there is any more advice and support that they can give to help get this situation resolved.
Florence Echelon.
Happy birthday, Madam Deputy Speaker. Madam Deputy Speaker, yesterday the Post Office confirmed that the Clapham Common branch in my Vauxhall constituency will close permanently next month, and this is despite the serious impact it will have on elderly and vulnerable residents. The public consultation received over 1,000 responses, on top of a high-profile campaign against this and a petition which was handed into Downing Street just yesterday. The Post Office promised to take that feedback seriously, but despite community opposition, they've not made a single change to their plans after the consultation. So will the Leader of the House agree with me that public consultation should never be meaningful tick-box exercises, and can we have a debate in government time to ensure communities can influence these really important decisions?
Well, the honourable lady is absolutely right. There is an obligation to consult with the public, but also if we are going to be wanting the Post Office to provide services in the way that they should be, those consultations should be listened to. She will know that in the business statement I just gave, on Thursday the 8th of February, there is a general debate on backbench business delivered general debate on the management culture of the post office, and I would suggest to the Honourable Lady that is her next available opportunity to get some serious time on the floor of the House to air her concerns. But I hope that the relevant people in the post office will have heard what she has said today and take it into account.
Steve Double.
Madam Deputy Speaker, and happy birthday to you. I have the great honour of representing a large number of fishermen who operate under 10 fishing vessels out of the harbours of Mevagissey, Newquay and Foy. These vessels play a very important role in providing high-quality fish for the UK and export in the most sustainable way, and are an important part of the local economy, but also the social and cultural fabric of these coastal communities. These fishermen often feel overlooked when government is setting fisheries policy, and they're particularly being adversely impacted at the moment by the decision to remove quota for pollock. So could we have a ministerial statement on the government's policy with regard to the under 10 metre fishing fleet, and what steps the government is taking to support them to ensure they have a viable and sustainable future?
Well, I thank my honourable friend and agree that with him that we should be supporting our wonderful fishermen. He will know that the under 10 metre fishing fleet plays a vital role, and that vessels have received around 12,000 tonnes of quota for last year, double what the same vessels would have received if we were still a member of the EU. They have worked very hard to seize those opportunities. I know that a port not very far from the honourable gentleman's constituency has increased its annual sales from £40 million when it was in the EU to now £70 million a year, and that is a huge testament and achievement to them, their hard work, and we will do everything we can to support the UK fleet.
Alistair Strathern.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker, and a happy birthday. Families on Campton Field Estate in my constituency, like so many others across the country, have been left exposed to fleecehold by the government's failure to act to end the ongoing limbo of estate adoption once and for all. The leasehold bill this week contained many good measures, but didn't act on the CMA's recommendation to tackle the issue of estate adoption at source. With cross-party representations now being made on this issue, will the Housing Minister make a statement about when the government will tackle this issue once and for all?
Well, I thank the honourable gentleman for his question and also his support for legislation that the Department for Levelling Up is bringing forward. Given that the next questions to the Secretary of State are not until the 4th of March, I will make sure that his department and the Housing Minister in particular has heard what he has said.
Martin Vickers.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker, and of course, happy birthday. Members across the House, I'm sure, will be familiar with the various drop-in sessions that are held here, particularly those organised by campaign groups and charities connected with the health sector. One of the common themes that comes out is always early diagnosis, but one of the disturbing themes is often when they produce statistics showing that treatment is not common across the country, and perhaps your own constituency has not the best outcomes. Could we have a debate in government time when we can look at how we improve treatments across the country?
Well, I thank the honourable gentleman for raising this very important point, and clearly early diagnosis is critical in getting the best patient outcomes, but it is also critical to ensure that people are accessing the healthcare they need in a timely way, and making sure that people aren't waiting longer than they need to. That is why we have invested so heavily in new diagnostic testing centres across the country. I think off the top of my head 160 have been stood up, and that is very much helping bring down waiting lists. I think it is an excellent topic for a debate, and we should also be looking across the whole of the UK so that the four NHS systems that we have in the UK can learn from each other and ensure that patients, wherever they are getting the best care.
Barry Sherman.
Mr. Speaker, everyone's wished you a happy birthday. I was nervously thinking of pinch punch first day of the month, but knowing your character, I don't think I would have tried it on. I wouldn't try it on the Leader of the House either. Can I ask a very serious question to the Leader of the House? The news that a Member of Parliament is going to stand down because of the pressure that is being brought on him is extremely worrying. There is increasing pressure on Members of Parliament. I raised my own worries and concerns in my own case recently. It's going to be a terrible thing if people are afraid to come and offer themselves for public office and stand for Parliament. I think not just a debate, but could we do something in the House about how we give better support, how we get early morning, up in the morning and keen to come to work. I recently raised my problems. I haven't had any much help or support from the House or even from my own party. We need to do better if we're going to keep this a healthy parliamentary democracy. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Well, can I thank the honourable and wise member for his question. It is an absolute tragedy that people who come here in good faith to represent their constituencies and do a job they love doing are hounded out of office or have to leave office because of the well-being of their family. I know honourable members' children in some cases have been targeted, including very young children. This should not happen. I initiated last year the largest ever survey of members to ensure this House is responding to the concerns that they have for the world as it is now and not as it was 20 years ago. We must continue to do that, and I hope that the House authorities will meet with the honourable gentleman to discuss his experiences and how we can support honourable members in ensuring that they are able to go around and do their jobs. We can all help with this, and the public can help with this too, because we know that what often encourages others is where they feel they are given permission to demonise members of Parliament, to dehumanise them, and quite often that permission to do serious physical harm and the motivation for it often starts on social media. Whatever you think about a particular person's political persuasions or their views or their voting record, they are here at the service of the people who sent them here, and that deserves respect and it deserves our protection too.
Joe Gideon.
Deputy Speaker, and a very happy birthday. Food waste is bad for the environment and bad for the economy, which is why the work of food redistribution charities such as Fair Share is essential. At a time when people are struggling with the cost of living, the redistribution network is vital, and we should look at how we can improve it and invest in it. Whilst the government is making good progress in reducing food waste along the supply chain, there is still much more that can be done. And even in this House, I'm always concerned about how much food we throw away. Will my right honourable friend make parliamentary time to discuss the issue of food waste in the UK?
And I thank my honourable friend for raising this very important matter, and I know that many honourable and right honourable members from across the House will be involved in pantry and larder schemes, which are not just helping people through the cost of living, but are also ensuring that food is not going to waste. And these national networks are quite often tied in with local provision as well, with local allotments and community groups. I think that is an excellent topic for a debate, and I know that the Backbench Business Committee Chairman will be very interested in an application.
Dame Diana Johnson.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker, and happy birthday. A very experienced MP once said to me that the letters MP stand for must persist. So I'm going to persist, and I'm going to ask the Leader of the House whether she will help me get a statement from the Paymaster General about the infected blood inquiry in relation to the statement by Sir Brian last month about the delay in the publication of his final report, but the fact that work, I know, has been going on so the House can be updated. And can the Leader also just reassure me that the House will hear from government on the day of the publication of Sir Brian's final report on the 20th of May, and not the 25 days, I think it's sitting days, that have been talked about, which would take it until the 3rd of July for the government to respond. That's not acceptable, and I hope the leader will be able to reassure me.
Well, can I thank, on behalf of, I'm sure, everyone in this House, the Honourable Lady for her persistence in this incredibly important matter. She is right to. Often MPs do not have authority, particularly backbench MPs, over particular areas. All we are able to do sometimes is nag and persist, but that is what we need to do, and the Honourable Lady does it very effectively. I've had some recent updates from the Paymaster General, who is working through this, and I know the Honourable Lady is aware of that. I hope that he will be updating this House certainly before the 20th of May on the progress that he is making, but I think particularly when that landmark report is finally concluded, that the government would be able to make itself available to the House on that matter.
Anthony Higginbottom.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker, and a very happy birthday. Madam Deputy Speaker, tens of thousands of pounds. That's the bill that has landed on the doors of a number of my constituents, but according to a BBC report, constituents of honourable and right honourable members, certainly across the north of England. The bills relate to cavity wall insulation that residents had installed using a government grant. That cavity wall insulation was defective, caused damp, mould and damage to property. When no-win, no-fee lawyers got in touch, residents took up the offer. That proceeded through the courts. They were told they wouldn't have to pay, and a law firm based in Sheffield, SSB Law, has now collapsed. There was no insurance policy for residents, and they have now been hit with legal costs because of the collapse of SSB Law. Now, I understand that the SRA has done a forensic investigation last year, and they're now investigating it again. But could I enlist the help of the Leader of the House to get justice for those residents who have no means to pay the tens of thousands of pounds they're now being asked for, when they thought they were doing the right thing to get cavity wall insulation and then to put it right after it went wrong?
Well, that is an appalling situation. I'm very sorry to hear about it. I understand that this issue has been reported to the Solicitors Regulation Authority and that there is an investigation into the matters that have been raised. And the Honourable Gentleman, I'm sure, will be supporting his constituents with regard to any complaints they wish to make to the Legal Ombudsman and the Solicitors Regulation Authority. He will know that Justice Orals is scheduled to take place on the 20th of February, but I also think that the Department for Levelling Up, Housing and Communities may also be able to assist perhaps with some of the schemes that they have in place to help regenerate communities and tackle some of these issues. So I will write to that department and ask them if they can assist the Honourable Gentleman.
Ian Paisley.
Thank you very much, Madam Deputy Speaker, and many happy returns also. And I know you'll not be the only person celebrating today. My constituent, Catherine Humphrey, will be celebrating today. She was at the Palace yesterday for an investiture. I know her family are immensely proud of her. Yeah. But could I ask the Leader of the House, she'll be aware of the wonderful gospel singer Harmony London, who performs regularly in the streets of London, principally in Oxford Street and other places. In a recent performance there, Community Support Officer number AW5152 accosted the performance and said to her that you are not allowed to perform church songs outside of church grounds unless you have a special letter. Now, the Leader of the House will know that under Article 9, our rights to have freedom of religious worship are enshrined in law and protected, and that the officer was just simply wrong. When this was pointed out to the officer, her response was to stick her tongue out at the performer. Now, that is just wrong. And this performer is, unfortunately, more than once has been accosted by police officers about her performance. She's entitled to sing gospel songs in the streets of our nation. She's entitled to do that, as many buskers do, and those freedoms should be protected. And I hope that the police, after apologising, will then train their officers to be aware of the rights of all of the citizens of this United Kingdom.
The honourable gentleman for raising this, and he will know that the Metropolitan Police have said that they have got this wrong. I think there were some other issues related to busking licences and all of that, but in terms of what he has described that officer said and her justification for doing things, the Met have said that they did get that wrong, and my understanding is that they have apologised for doing so. The honourable gentleman is absolutely right to raise that, and I hope it will have reassured the public about their particular rights to do one thing or another. But I think we will also need to make sure that we are placing on record our support for the police. We have policing by consent. Sometimes they make poor decisions, but they are held to account for it, and where they've got it wrong, they apologise. I think that is the hallmark of a good police service.
Dr. Matthew Offord.
Mr. Speaker, in 2019, I was successful in my campaign to have Mill Hill Broadway train station included in the Department for Transport Access for All programme. However, I was subsequently advised that the installation would be delayed. Given the importance of this project to local people, can we have a minister come to the dispatch box and provide an update on the progress of the last round of funding applications?
Well, I'm sorry to hear if there has been delay to this very important project, which I know that the honourable gentleman worked incredibly hard to secure. He will know that the next transport questions is on the 8th of February. I understand that there is an issue about engaging a particular contractor to be able to start this project on March of this year. But he will be best directing this to the Secretary of State, but I will make sure that he's heard what the honourable gentleman has said.
Mary Glindon.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. Happy birthday. Over the last few weeks, this House has seen a rise in absenteeism amongst senior ministers. There's been a debate on steel with no Secretary of State and nothing from the Education Secretary on the childcare crisis. Does the Leader of the House agree that this is an unacceptable way for her colleagues to treat this House?
Well, I will certainly make sure the relevant departments has heard what the Honourable Lady has said, but I would disagree with her. I think whether it is a statement or attendance at questions or making ministers available for urgent questions, I'm not aware of any incident where there hasn't been the relevant minister present.
Virginia Crosby.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. Penblwydd hapus. Ynys is represented by 5 members of the Senedd, soon to increase to 6, and merge with another constituency, which could result in not one MS living on Ynys Môn. Conversely, the UK government has recognised Ynys Môn unique island character by granting the island special protected status. Does the Leader of the House agree with me that the Welsh Labour government, propped up by Plaid, should be prioritising increasing the number of GP and dentist appointments, not increasing the number of MSs by a staggering 60% from 60 to 96?
I'm shocked to hear about this plan to massively increase the number of MSs. The answer to situations about how to get better healthcare and these things is seldom more politicians. It's usually more GPs or more teachers, and we of course have a good track record in delivering on both of those things. Just to put this in context, Madam Deputy Speaker, on the same constituent to politician ratio as the plan that they are outlining in Wales, if that were transferred to the House of Commons, this chamber would have to accommodate 2,058 members of Parliament. That is Labour's blueprint for governing Britain, I think.
Alex Cunningham.
Madam Deputy Speaker, and may I suggest a glass of the Talisker to mark your special day? I knew it was one of your favourites. Earlier this week, we saw the publication of the long-delayed Teeswork report, which made no fewer than 28 recommendations to address poor practice by the Tees Tory Mayor in everything from governance and transparency to failure to provide his own board with the necessary information to make decisions and the lack of scrutiny over the value for public money. Does the leader agree that was sufficient reason to call in the National Audit Office, even before the latest private eye revelations that £20 million was paid by the Mayor's Development Corporation to the organisation controlled by two local businessmen to move rubble from one part of the site to another without any contract?
I'm not sure the honourable gentleman's suggestion for the Deputy Speaker was simply a suggestion or an offer to purchase her a glass. I hope the latter. Labour are focused for the first time, really, in the last few months on Teesside. For many, many years, when they had the opportunity to directly help this part of the country, they ignored it. And so the people of Teesside, fed up with Labour inaction, put their trust in Mayor Houchen. He has a plan and he is delivering. He saved the airport. He secured the first and largest free port, which has already secured billions of pounds of inward investment. The Teeswork site has already been made ready for redevelopment and investment ahead of schedule and ahead of budget. £650 million of investment is securing thousands of green jobs, and the Sea factory is being built using British steel, which makes me very proud. The world's first CCUS facility has also secured billions of additional funding into the area. He's managed to secure £200 million to invest in local rail, and he's got a new bypass on the way. He's increased the employment rate by 3% above the national average rate, and he has got future revenues in business rates which are projected to be about £1.4 billion to date. He gets on and delivers. Labour ought to be taking notes rather than smearing him and the hard-working people of Teesside who are making this happen. And that tells me that Labour have learned absolutely nothing. They haven't changed, and they show every sign of taking the people of Teesside for granted.
Matt Vickers.
Deputy Speaker, and happy birthday. Taxi drivers are essential key workers who get youngsters to school, the elderly to health services and support our nighttime economy. But speaking to taxi drivers in Stockton South, they're increasingly victim to assault and to fare dodgers, and they feel that no one's got their back. Will my right honourable friend grant me a debate on how we can better protect taxi drivers and ensure those responsible feel the full force of the law?
Well, can I thank the honourable gentleman for drawing attention to this issue. He will know in statistics that I gave earlier on that crime is falling, and particularly violent crime against individuals is down substantially, violent crime down by 52% now, and of course we have more police officers than ever before. But I'm sure that the Home Secretary will want to hear about the particular concerns the honourable gentleman has. I will certainly make sure that he has heard what the honourable gentleman has said. He can raise it with him directly on the 26th of this month in questions, and I thank the honourable gentleman for standing up for the taxi drivers in his part of the world.
Sam Tarry.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. Many happy returns. It's nice to share a moment of lightness in what are otherwise quite dark times. Madam Deputy Speaker, last week the ICJ ruled that claims of genocide in Gaza are plausible. 2 days later, Itamar Ben-Gvir, the Israeli Minister of National Security, stated during a settler conference in Jerusalem, alongside 10 other government ministers, that encouraging emigration from Gaza is a necessity. I'm sure that many colleagues across this House would agree with me. This sounds dangerously like an advocation for ethnic cleansing of Palestinians from Gaza. So will the Leader of the House find time for a debate on government time, so this House may express its views on whether it is appropriate to issue now targeted sanctions against any individual, organisation or state who is found to have incited, committed war crimes or incited ethnic cleansing or genocide?
Well, understand why the Honourable Gentleman is raising concerns on this issue. I think all members of the House are concerned about what is happening in the Middle East, that we want to see civilians protected, and we want to see an end to hostilities. Key to that is ensuring that Israel is safe and secure, and that its citizens who have been kidnapped and are being held hostage are returned to them. The Honourable Gentleman will have heard what the Foreign Secretary has said on these matters. He has been doing a huge amount of work, particularly over the last week, talking to nations in the region who can particularly help secure all of those aims. And I would urge all right honourable and honourable members of this House to think about what they are saying on the floor of this House, and to think about whether that helps that situation or hinders it. This chamber is not an international court. Accusations about genocide or ethnic cleansing should not be made. It is about ensuring that the right bodies are overseeing these matters, and I'm sure that if he asks for a briefing on how this government is doing that, whether it is our partnerships in the Ministry of Defence or whether it is at the Foreign and Commonwealth and Development Office, he would be very reassured by the oversight that is being provided.
Thank you, Mr Deputy Speaker. Trust in politics matters. Will the Leader of the House make a statement setting out the importance of every single member of this House, ensuring that any information they present as facts to this House is accurate, and when mistakes are made, as sometimes they will be, members have a duty to correct the record in early course out of respect for members of this House and those we represent? And does she agree that members correcting inaccurate information provided in error is not a sign of weakness, but a sign of strength and honour, values to which we should all aspire?
Well, I hope that my actions on that matter in the past speak volumes and do that job, Mr Speaker. Where I have given the House incorrect information previously, I have corrected the record. The Honourable Lady is quite right. Sometimes mistakes happen and they should be corrected. With regard to the motivation for the Honourable Lady asking her question, I would refer her to what I said yesterday in a point of order. The figures that she is working off from a House of Commons library paper are from the SNP's budget in 2022. They are out of date.
Thanks, Mr Deputy Speaker. I wrote to the Secretary of State for the Department of Health on the 16th of October regarding the closed state-of-the-art Rutherford Cancer Centre in Beaumont in my constituency, asking if the department would consider reopening it due to the lengthy and lengthening cancer list in my area in the North East. I received a letter only this week, 3 months later, from the department suggesting, I quote, to operate as an NHS cancer centre, the Rutherford sites need to meet NHS specifications, and we are advised by the NHS England that they do not. The reality is that the other cancer units run by the Rutherford centres in Taunton and in Clatterbridge in Liverpool have got joint partnerships now with the NHS. The Rutherford Centre in Beaumont has had referrals from the NHS, so this is absolute humbug. What I would like is the consideration for a debate in government time to debate fairness and equity and the frequency of diagnostics, etc., on cancer treatment across the country, and not forgetting the North East of England.
Order. Just before I call the Leader of the House, there are a significant number of members who wish to participate. There's some very serious business to follow. I'd be grateful if honourable members on both sides of the House would ask questions and not make speeches. Leader of the House.
Well, as the Honourable Gentleman will know, the Department for Health will oversee the National Cancer Plan, but although I don't know the background to the honourable gentleman's particular constituency issue, I suspect that it will be a matter for local commissioners. But I will certainly make sure the Secretary of State has heard what he has said today, but I think it may be an issue that he needs to direct to local commissioners.
John Trickett.
Mr Deputy Speaker, and the Office of Budget Responsibility is responsible for giving clear advice to the Government as to its fiscal and budgetary strategy. I wonder if the Leader of the House noted the other day that a senior representative of the OBR said that the Government's figures were a work of fiction because the projections for cuts after the election have never been printed. I wonder if the Leader could comment on that. Is it a word of fiction, and can we have a debate about the OBR and its role?
Well, certainly the honourable gentleman, I would suggest, should raise matters directly with the Treasury. He will not have long to wait. The 6th of February is the next Treasury questions. But I would just remind him that this is an institution that we established and support, and I think it has done a great deal of work to ensure that the kind of mismanagement that happened pre-2010 doesn't happen again.
Bergen.
Thank you, Mr Deputy Speaker. Recent court documents from the Foreign Office appear to show it was the Foreign Secretary himself who recommended that arms sale licences to Israel be allowed to continue after an internal review into the legality of that, given what's happening in Gaza. There are concerns that this wasn't the impression given by the Foreign Secretary at the recent Select Committee hearing, which was that he hadn't taken any formal decision. It's important that this is cleared up. So would the Leader of the House allow time for a debate for us to discuss the legality of current arms exports to Israel, the FCO decision to continue with them, and would she write to the Foreign Secretary to ask that the Foreign Secretary places the legal advice he has received on this in the library?
Well, this may be news to the honourable gentleman, but there is a select committee of this House which scrutinises arms export controls. They are entitled to look at anything. All the policy will be cited there, and certainly much of this material is available for honourable members to look at. What the decision takers will be looking for is there's very clear criteria. It is overseen and it has a legal framework around it. And as the honourable gentleman will know, we do not grant arms exports licences to countries where we think those arms will be misused or potentially fall into a third party's hands that would not be a responsible thing to do. And I can only conclude that the fact that criteria has not been met in the case of Israel means that we are right in our course of action to continue our defence partnerships with them.
Andrew Bridgen.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. Can I bring the House's attention to my entry in the Register of Members' Interest that I am currently a major shareholder and in a few weeks' time will be the 100% shareholder of a significant food processing business in North West Leicestershire. Food is not a luxury. It is essential for human existence. Food price inflation is running at 10%, which is putting pressure on household budgets. Across Europe, farmers are leading protests which are being barely reported in our media, and the phrase "no farmers, no food" is being translated and understood in many languages. So can we have an urgent debate in government time on UK farming, UK food production and UK food security before our own farmers start taking direct action?
Well, I thank the honourable gentleman for his question. He will know how to apply for a debate, and I'm sure on this particular topic it would be very well attended. He will know that many individuals on these benches would have to give a similar declaration of interest if they were to speak in such a debate. We absolutely understand the issues facing our farmers. We value what they do as a tremendous service to this nation, and we rely on them for our resilience. I'm sure if he were to apply, it would be a well-attended event.
Emma Harvey.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. In July 2020, Baroness Cumberledge produced a report called First Do No Harm, which looked at the damage being done to women by valproate, primados and vaginal mesh. Now, members across the House have supported this report and especially supported listening to the women who've been harmed and debilitated so badly by the use of this mesh. Please can we have a debate in government time to update us on the government's progress in adhering to some of those important recommendations?
Well, can I thank the Honourable Lady for keeping this particular issue in the public eye. It has received cross-party support, and it has been long overdue that we have not had enough focus on the particular issues that are affecting women and some of these legacy treatments and devices that have caused so much damage. I would thank all members who have worked towards that, most notably the Honourable Member for Thurrock, who did a huge amount of work on that particular issue when she was at the Ministry, and she will know that the Secretary of State has just published an updated report on our strategy for women's health, and I will make sure that she has heard what the Honourable Lady has said today about this particular issue.
Gerald Jones.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. Petrol prices in Merthyr Tydfil continue to be approximately 10 pence per litre higher than in some surrounding areas. Even the same retailers are charging more locally than in their nearby stores. I've written to petrol retailers who have forecourts locally, and those who have replied have been unable to justify why residents in my constituency are being ripped off. So can we have a debate on what action the government can take to address this scandalous situation in what continues to be a very difficult time for families?
Well, the Honourable Gentleman is absolutely right. Households and businesses need to ensure that they are getting competition at the pump and the best price, and that any savings that are being made with changes in oil prices, for example, are being passed on to the customer. He will know that we have brought forward work with the Competition and Markets Authority to stand up Pump Watch. The Secretary of State for Net Zero and Energy Security gave an update to Members of Parliament a couple of weeks ago on this issue. This will ensure competition, but it will also enable consumers to actually see what different retailers are doing. That will be a big step forward, but if he wants to give me the details about the retailers that are not treating his constituents fairly, I will make sure the Secretary of State sees that.
Hopkins.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. Today is Time to Talk Day, the nation's biggest mental health conversation. And good quality youth services can have a positive impact on young people's mental health. So whether it's places like the Young Persons Hub or Tocco Youth Space in Luton, or people like our outreach workers from Luton and Central Bedfordshire Council, they're all really important to enabling young people to open up and feel listened to. Yep. So will the Leader of the House consider allowing government time for debate on the important role of youth organisations and services on young people's mental well-being and personal development?
Can I thank, on behalf of all honourable and right honourable members, the lady for raising time to talk. I know that many colleagues will be involved in raising awareness and making full use of the opportunities to do so. She is right. This is a particular issue affecting young people. It always has been, but particularly after the dreadful pandemic years, we do really need to ensure that we are making sure our young people have everything they need to thrive and have good mental health. And she will know how to apply for a debate in the usual way.
Mark Weston.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. And I think the Leader of the House will know that since early last year, if not before, many of us on this side of the House, the member for Middlesbrough particularly, have been raising the issue of Tees works. The report released on Monday was scathing in its assessment of the company. It stated, and I quote, "Tees work offered insufficient transparency to offer evidence of value for money." Clearly, we need greater transparency in such projects. Can the Leader of the House, therefore, please remind the Prime Minister to finally release details of his conversations surrounding Tees works, as he was asked to do twice last year? And will she agree to a debate on the need for the National Audit Office to investigate into Tees works, given the scale of the project and the public concern?
Well, I thank the honourable gentleman for his question, and I should clarify my remarks were not that the Labour Party had neglected scrutinising the work of the Teesside Mayor. It was that they had neglected that area of the country when they were in power and had so long to actually help it regenerate and help get investment in there. I will draw his attention to what I said earlier on about the achievements of the Mayor and what local people have been able to do when bureaucracy is pushed out of the way and good people can get together and get on and help the area that they love develop. He has, in his question, pointed to the fact that there is an enormous amount of scrutiny scrutiny of contracts, value for money, and all of that has gone on. That is what this report and the other investigations and oversight has happened. And I would just say to the Labour Party, stop knocking success, stop knocking this plan that is working, start taking some notes.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Just before Christmas, the Scottish Government published its budget, which included confirmation that Clyde Gateway, a community urban regeneration company which has invested hugely in my constituency and in nearby Glasgow, would continue to receive £5 million of capital funding. Except a few days later, they realised that that was in fact a typo, and actually they were cutting the entirety of the capital budget to that organisation, although they didn't make it public until several weeks later. I'm tempted to ask the Leader of the House if we can have a debate. I'm tempted to ask the Leader of the House if we can have a debate on the basic competence of the Scottish Government, but instead can I ask if there's any mechanism for a further statement on levelling up funding, or on any other mechanism that we can use to get funding to an essential community regeneration company like this?
Well, I'm very sorry to hear that situation, and it would be, I can tell how disappointing it is to the honourable gentleman, but I know that it would be very disappointing to his constituents as well, and I shall make sure that the Secretary of State for Scotland has heard his particular concerns and worries about that. I think there are not enough hours in government time or hours that the Chairman of the Backbench Business Committee to give this House to fully examine and debate the level of incompetency that the Scottish Government are so renowned for. I'm very sorry to hear this particular incident, and I know that the honourable gentleman has now got that on record.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. It's always a pleasure to ask the Leader of the House a question, and this week the question will always, not always, but mostly features upon the persecution of religious groups across the world. The Leader of the House will know I bring this matter to her attention every week. It's a state of religion, freedom of religion or belief in the light of the persecution of Christians in Iraq, and a country that I visited some years ago. Chaldean Catholics in Iraq are presently living under impossible oppression and confiscation of ecclesiastical property after the country's president revoked the state's resignation that Cardinal Sacco is head of their church and sole administrator of its goods. So will the Leader of the House please join me in urging for the protection of religious expression and property in Iraq, not just for the Chaldean Catholics, but for all the ethnic minorities in that country. Thank you.
The honourable gentleman for drawing the House's attention to a very important matter which deserves our focus and scrutiny, and again he has done us a service by raising this question, as he does every single week. Given that Foreign Office questions is not for some time, I will make sure that the Foreign Secretary has heard his concerns about this particular group and ask his Minister to update the honourable gentleman's office about what we are doing to raise awareness of this matter, but also to hold people to account.
That completes business questions. In Maybury.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. And I apologise for my misunderstanding earlier. I want to seek your advice, Mr. Speaker, on how backbenchers like me and others have ample and adequate opportunity of applying for a backbench committee, being successful, and then having the ability to take part in a debate given adequate time. We've seen today, if you look at the last week, the Honourable Lady put forward the business of the day, which was fine, and then it altered this week, understandably, and I understand the importance, the real importance of the change in the Chamber debates for today with regards to the Northern Ireland motion for approval, the United Kingdom internal market motion for approval. Understand that. Perhaps that could have taken all day. I'm sure that would have been welcomed by the members from Northern Ireland. But the reality is, Mr. Speaker, the general debate on minors and minor communities and the motion for freedom and democracy in Iran, we could have an hour for 2 debates. And quite frankly, it's not acceptable. Can he advise us how people, backbenchers, can actually have their voice heard in here?
Well done. Leader of the House.
I'm happy to answer that point of order. I can understand the honourable gentleman's disappointment. I hope that there will be a good amount of time for backbench business debates. The chairman of the backbench business committee, who's sitting next to the honourable gentleman, will know that I'm very keen to accommodate and give time for these very important debates and support the innovation that is the backbench business committee. It will be the House that decides the length of time that these 2 SIs will take. There was considerable representation yesterday that more time be given and the mechanism be given to the House to be able to take these SIs individually. The government listened, and on this important matter, we think it's important this House has that time.
The only thing I could add to that is just to say he sat next to the member for Gateshead. I'm sure he'd be very sympathetic here. They could hopefully schedule more time for that very important issue. Point of order, Diana Jones.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And could I please raise a point of order in relation to the infected blood scandal and inaccuracies in what ministers are saying to Parliament, which is causing me a great deal of concern. On the 18th of January, the Paymaster General said to the House, in, I think, Cabinet Office questions, the psychological support is now in place. This was in relation to Sir Brian Langstaff's recommendations in his report. I then submitted a question to the Department for Health and Social Care to publish details of that support, and the answer came back: a bespoke psychological support service for infected blood victims commissioned by NHS England is currently being developed and planned to go live in early September 2024. So it seems that the Minister for the Cabinet Office misspoke. He also, in those questions, said to the House that I have recognised the need to ensure that we get the clinical, legal and care experts in place. They are in place, and they are working on some of the complex issues that the Honourable Lady alludes to. So again, I tabled a question asking for further details. The answer came back on the 29th of January to say the government is in the process of appointing clinical, legal and social care experts to advise the Cabinet Office on the detailed technical considerations of the government's response to the infected blood inquiry, and will update Parliament in due course. It is totally unacceptable, Mr. Speaker, for ministers to give information on the floor of the House that is then contradicted in written parliamentary questions to members. And I wondered, Mr. Speaker, whether you would like to comment on what steps I could take to make sure that accurate information in this really difficult scandal where people are dying is relayed correctly to this House and to members and to the wider general public.
Can I say so, Honourable Lady? Thank you for giving notice of the point of order. It's a very important point of order. As she well knows, I'm not responsible for the accuracy of statements, or have I been given the power to police that accuracy, that for ministers what they make either in this House or in written answers. However, and I think this is important, I am sure that the Treasury benches will have heard her remarks, and the Table Office will be able to advise her on how to pursue this matter. The one thing I do know is the Honourable Member will not stop here today, and I know she will take all avenues that are open to her to ensure that she gets the remarks that she's made put back in order, but I'm sure the Treasury bench will have taken that on board. Thank you. Right, we now